The crowd gasped as 72-year-old Tom Harper, benched and forgotten, suddenly leapt to his feet, injury forcing the team to call on him. Against all odds, he took the baton, defying time and doubt with every pounding step. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. Coach Mark Reynolds paced behind the starting line, his jaw tight and eyes scanning the sea of runners, spectators, and flashing cameras. His reputation as a relentless taskmaster was well earned. The stakes this year were higher than ever. The city relay race wasn't just a local tradition, it was his legacy. Under his watch, the team had never lost. Every athlete on the roster had been meticulously selected for peak performance. And yet, there was one thorn in his side: Tom Harper. Tom was no ordinary competitor. At 72, most would have hung up their shoes long ago, but Tom's presence on the track was a living testament to grit and pride. A Marine veteran with 2 combat tours behind him, Tom's commitment to discipline transcended sport. It was a philosophy of life. His strides might not be as quick as the younger runners, but his heart thumped with unmatched resolve. The crowd knew this. They cheered his name every year, rallying behind the old warrior whose spirit refused to be extinguished. But to Coach Reynolds, results were non-negotiable. The team's victory depended on every second shaved off, every burst of speed harnessed. Tom's age, no matter how honorable his past, presented a risk Mark wasn't willing to take. The decision to bench him wasn't personal cruelty. It was cold, calculated pragmatism. Mark had spent sleepless nights crunching numbers, reviewing times, plotting strategies. The data was clear. The younger runners could close the final lap in under 2 minutes. Tom's best was 30 seconds slower. In a race decided by fractions, Mark's decision was about survival, not sentiment. The announcement hit like a thunderclap. Murmurs rippled through the crowd before swelling into outright protest. Voices rose, demanding explanations. Why bench Tom? He's earned his place. This isn't just a race anymore. The energy was electric, raw, tangled with disbelief and defiance. Tom sat quietly on the bench, his face stoic, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of something deeper. Betrayal, perhaps, or the sharp sting of exclusion. His hands, weathered by years of labor and battle, clenched and unclenched in rhythm with his breathing, the silence around him louder than any roar. Among the spectators, a complex mix of emotions twisted in the air. Sympathy and frustration mingled with anger directed squarely at the coach. Tom's benching became a symbol, a moment of reckoning. It wasn't just about who ran fastest anymore. It was about dignity, respect, and the recognition owed to those who'd paved the way. Parents clutched their children tighter, veterans exchanged grim looks, and longtime fans gritted their teeth at the perceived injustice. Mark's unwavering commitment to victory had suddenly become a battleground for loyalty and fairness. Even among the team, fissures appeared. Some younger runners, loyal to Mark's vision, accepted the decision without question, seeing it as necessary for success. Others, however, shared the crowd's growing unease. They had seen Tom's dedication: early mornings, grueling workouts, quiet encouragement during every practice. To them, this was more than a tactical move. It was a betrayal of team spirit. The locker room buzzed with whispered debates, old friends quietly weighing their allegiance to the coach against their respect for the veteran. Mark's internal conflict remained hidden beneath a veneer of stoicism. He wasn't blind to the pain his choice caused, but the pressure was relentless. Sponsors, media, and the entire running community expected perfection. The relay race was more than a competition. It was a statement of dominance. And Mark's legacy was on the line. His decision wasn't made lightly, but his focus was unyielding. To him, the race was about victory first, emotion second. As the final leg approached, the air thickened with anticipation. Tom rose from the bench, his gait steady despite the sting of rejection. The crowd's roar swelled, a chorus of defiance and hope. In that moment, The race transcended the track. It became a testament to spirit versus strategy, heart against cold calculation. The coach's choice had ignited a fire far beyond the finish line, a challenge to the very meaning of respect, courage, and what it truly meant to win. The stadium pulsed with energy, the collective heartbeat of thousands syncing with the pounding of sneakers against asphalt. The race had unfolded with surgical precision until disaster struck. Jake Thompson, the team's fastest sprinter and linchpin for the final leg, collapsed just meters into his run, clutching his ankle in a sharp, unmistakable twist. Gasps erupted from the crowd, the sudden shift fracturing the electric tension into chaos. The baton slipped from Jake's grasp, skittering across the track like a symbol of hope lost. On the sidelines, time fractured. The team's moment of triumph teetered on the edge of ruin. Coaches shouted frantic orders. Teammates scrambled to regroup, faces pale with the crushing weight of failure imminent. And then, like a spark against the storm, Tom Harper moved. The veteran's rise was silent but resolute. He had been seated, watching, sidelined, an invisible presence for too long. But now he stood, muscles taut beneath his weathered skin, eyes blazing with a defiant fire. Without hesitation, he jogged toward the track, the crowd's uproar swelling into a tidal wave of disbelief and raw, fervent approval. A man who had been benched moments ago, cast aside in favor of youth and speed, was stepping back into the fray. Coach Reynolds's face, usually an impassive mask of control, flickered with conflicting emotions: frustration, doubt, fear. This was a gambit that threatened the carefully constructed strategy he had spent months honing. Yet, beneath his stern exterior, a crack appeared. He saw in Tom not just a runner, but a force of unyielding will, a living testament to endurance and heart. The baton, gleaming under the harsh stadium lights, was handed to Tom with trembling urgency. His fingers curled around it, not as a concession, but as a challenge. This was more than a race. It was a crucible. Every step he had taken since his days in the Marines had prepared him for moments like this, when the world demanded more than speed or strength, when the soul must rise to meet impossible odds. Tom launched forward, his stride measured, powerful, an echo of battles fought in faraway deserts and jungles. The crowd's disbelief twisted into awe as the veteran surged ahead, closing the gap between him and the runners who had once seemed untouchable. Each footfall was a drumbeat of defiance against age, expectation, and the cold calculus of the coach's earlier decision. The stadium roared, a cathedral of sound embracing Tom's every move. Faces blurred, time warped, and for a fleeting, transcendent moment, the race ceased to be about winning or losing. It became a narrative of human spirit, unbreakable, resolute, radiant. The distance between Tom and the front runners diminished with every heartbeat, a testament to something that numbers could never measure: courage. Around the track, the air was charged with a raw electricity. Spectators held their breath as Tom's pace steadied into a relentless rhythm, each step a declaration. This was not a man running against the clock, but against every whisper of doubt, every shadow of defeat cast before him. The wind whipped past, carrying with it the collective hopes of a crowd now united in astonished support. Mark Reynolds watched, torn between strategy and the undeniable power of the moment. The carefully planned margin of victory he had sought to secure now hung by the thread of Tom's tenacity. The coach's legacy, built on control, precision, and hard choices, was confronting a wild, unyielding force that refused to be scripted. In the stands, emotions surged like a storm unleashed. Elderly veterans nodded with reverence. Young runners clenched fists in awe. Families stood rooted in shared disbelief. Tom Harper was more than a competitor now. He was an emblem of defiance, a living reminder that spirit can shatter expectation and that dignity can be reclaimed even when the odds seem insurmountable. As the final lap unfurled, every step Tom took resonated far beyond the track. The race had become a battle not just for victory, but for respect, for honor, for the indomitable will to rise and run despite everything. The question on everyone's lips was no longer if he could win, but how fiercely he would fight to prove that some battles are never lost before they begin. The final meters stretched out like a battleground where every heartbeat thundered louder than the last. Tom Harper, muscles burning but spirit ignited, found a wellspring of energy beyond exhaustion. His strides lengthened, each one propelled not just by physical strength, but by the invisible force of a lifetime forged in hardship, discipline, and resilience. The world around him blurred into a vortex of sound and color, but his focus sharpened. Nothing existed except the track ahead and the finish line beckoning like a beacon. The crowd erupted into a cacophony so overwhelming it felt as if the very earth trembled beneath the stadium. The roar was not merely the sound of cheering. It was a collective exhale of defiance, hope, and vindication. Spectators' voices melded into a tidal wave that crashed against the constraints of disbelief. This was no ordinary race. This was a human drama unfolding live, a testament to the indomitable spirit that refuses to be broken by age or circumstance. Every step Tom took was a statement, each breath a vow. He was running not just to win, but to dismantle the invisible walls of prejudice that had kept him benched. For decades, he had been defined by the scars of his service and the relentless march of time that many believed rendered him obsolete. Today, he shattered those assumptions with raw power and grace. His pace was steady, a pulse of certainty that carried him past the younger runners whose speed had once seemed invincible. As he crossed the finish line, the stadium exploded into chaos. The clock recorded his victory, but the moment transcended numbers and records. It was a triumph of spirit over statistics, heart over strategy. Tom's body trembled, sweat mingling with tears that carved lines down his weathered face. Around him, the crowd surged forward, breaking barriers of distance and protocol to embrace the man they had championed from the sidelines. Hands lifted Tom off the ground, their grip firm with admiration and reverence. The veteran who had been cast aside was now the symbol of victory, not just in the race, but in life's relentless battles. The cheers swelled into a symphony of raw emotion, voices rising in unison, a communal exultation that drowned out doubt and judgment. Coach Mark Reynolds stood at the edge of the track, his stern facade cracked by the weight of revelation. The coach who had prided himself on precision and results now confronted a humbling truth. Winning was not confined to metrics or tactical decisions. It was about recognizing the essence of perseverance, the courage to defy expectations, and the power of human dignity. His earlier decision, born of calculation and fear, had failed to see the bigger picture, the resilience that defines champions beyond the stopwatch. As he watched Tom celebrate, Mark's respect deepened into something quieter but more profound: understanding. The veteran's victory was a mirror reflecting not just triumph, but redemption. For Tom, for the team, and for the community that had stood witness. It was a lesson etched in sweat and cheers, a reminder that sometimes the greatest battles are those fought within the soul. The energy in the stadium did not wane. It shifted, becoming a shared experience that united everyone present. Young athletes found inspiration in Tom's defiance. Older spectators saw in him a reflection of their own unyielding spirit, and those who doubted learned that strength is measured in more than speed or youth. The track, once a mere arena for competition, had transformed into a sacred space where human potential revealed itself in its rawest, most beautiful form. Tom's story began to ripple outward, carried by whispers, conversations, and the beating hearts of those who had witnessed the impossible. It was a story of grit, conquering prejudice, of age shattering limitations, and of the relentless pursuit of dignity in the face of injustice. More than a race, it became a beacon, a testament to the truth that courage can topple barriers, that perseverance rewrites destinies, and that sometimes the most profound victories come when the world least expects them. In the wake of that final victorious roar, the community found new meaning in their own struggles, new faith in the power of the human spirit, and a renewed sense of possibility. Tom Harper, once sidelined, now stood at the center of a celebration not just of speed, but of the heart, a living proof that true victory is measured not by age or circumstance, but by the courage to keep running when every voice says to stop.